What is going on, you guys? It is your boy Matt Talks Films, and I am back with another video, and I'm back with another review. And this time, I am talking about one of the newest releases of 2026, and honestly, one of the most anticipated releases of 2026. I'm talking about The Bride, starring Jessie Buckley and Christian Bale, and it's also the second feature-length film from now director Maggie Gyllenhaal. And not only does this film have Jessie Buckley and Christian Bale at the helm, it's a stacked cast. A lot of familiar faces and a lot of talented actors are in this film. So, what did I think about The Bride? I thought The Bride was this monstrous yet fascinating disaster. I thought this film was bad, and honestly, one of the worst films I've seen in the past year. So, it's safe to say I have some very strong and honest and honestly objective opinions about The Bride. Now, I know art is subjective, but I feel like watching this film, the objective feeling should be this is not a good film. But if you want to hear my full thoughts and opinions about why I think The Bride isn't a good film, leave a like, comment, share, and subscribe right here, right now at Matt Talks Films, just so I can know you were here. And follow me everywhere at Matt Talks Films, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter for more short form content like this. Now, let's get into what I'm here for today, and that is The Bride. And now let me give you a quick preamble, and then I'll tell you what The Bride is about, and then I'll rattle off how I feel about this film. I was quite excited for The Bride. It's Jessie Buckley's performance after Hamnet, which is one of the greatest performances I've ever seen in my life, and she's teaming up with Christian Bale and Maggie Gyllenhaal. Maggie Gyllenhaal's directing the film, and Christian Bale is starring alongside her. So I was like, you know what? This feels like it's set up for success. It's a different look on Frankenstein and the Bride of Frankenstein, and I'm excited. The trailers looked really good. And then this week hits, and around Monday, I'm starting to see a whole bunch of early reviews from The Bride, and I'm not looking for these reviews. They just showed up on my Twitter timeline. And a lot of the reviews are baffling because a lot of the reviews were saying it's one of the worst films I've seen in the past year, one of the worst films I've seen in the past 5 years, and some were saying it's one of the worst films they've ever seen in their life. And I was like, this can't be. Jessie Buckley, Christian Bale, Peter Sarsgaard, a lot of other great actors. There's no way this film can be that bad. And then I go see it tonight, Friday, 7:30 showing. And I'm not going to say this is one of the worst films I've seen in the past 10 years, or one of the worst films I've ever seen in my life. But man, it's a bad film. And man, it is an incoherent mess at times. And the performances, despite me loving, absolutely loving Christian Bale and Jessie Buckley, they couldn't save this film. And to be quite honest with you, into another segue, Jessie Buckley, her performance in this film isn't a good one. And that hurt my soul because Hamnet is one of the most ground-shattering performances I've ever seen in my life. And honest with you guys, one of the greatest performances I've ever seen in my life. Period. She's going to win the Oscar this year, deservedly so. And it should be by a landslide. That's how great she is in Hamnet. Just a performance that completely transcends the art of film. So I'm like, the next performance she's going to do is going to be also great, also sensational. And to be quite honest with you guys, that was a harsh expectation to bestow upon Jessie Buckley. But to be quite honest with you guys, that should have been the expectation because what she did in Hamnet worthies that type of expectation. And I'm here to say Jessie Buckley does not give a good performance here, in my opinion. Now, she's such a great actor that she's probably performing this character with exactly how it was written because she's that much of a professional. That's why I garnished from her in her previous roles. But man, she does this film no favors. No favors. Like, there's some really good moments from her in this film, but man, a lot of it is just babbling and incoherence. And to be fair, I don't know if I can see anyone else playing this role and doing a good job. So it's not a her thing. She isn't a bad performer, and this film isn't going to make me look at her differently as a performer because she's earned a lot of respect outside of Hamnet. But man, this is one of the first performances I've seen from her where I'm like, that was a bad performance. So every actor's allowed an off film, an off day. But man, this is an off day. And I'm actually quite curious here because I wonder if this film was released in early January or potentially December, late December, would it have affected her Oscar chances? Now, she probably would have won anyway, but this film leaves a really bad taste in my mouth to the point where I'm like, maybe I have to rewatch Hamnet. Am I gonna feel a different type of way? I don't think I am, but man, I'm really curious how that would have affected her Oscar chances. And honestly, I think she's really lucky that this film didn't get released earlier, because I think it would have affected her Oscar chances ever so slightly. So, that was my quick preamble, and I'm going to talk more about Jessie Buckley as I talk more about this film, but quickly, here's what The Bride is about. This film follows Frankenstein, a lonely Frankenstein, and he travels all the way to 1930 Chicago to ask a groundbreaking scientist to create a companion for him. He's lonely as ever, he needs a wife, he needs a bride. The two revive a murdered young woman, and the bride is born. But what ensues is beyond what either of them imagined. It's a reimagining of Frankenstein and the Bride of Frankenstein. And not only that, you probably get two of the best castings to play those respective roles in Jessie Buckley and Christian Bale. So this is where I feel like I have to start. Maggie Gyllenhaal. It's my introduction to her as a filmmaker. I realize she's made a film in the past. I haven't seen that. Maybe I check it out, maybe I won't. But this is my introduction to her as a filmmaker. And really, I think it's just really poor filmmaking, a lot of different fronts. The storytelling is really, 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 really baffling. And I'm sorry I just like had a migraine there, but this film really made my brain feel like a puddle. She's not only the director here, producer, but she's also the writer of this film. She had a lot on her plate with this film. And I'm going to be quite honest with you guys. I am in no space to tell someone how to create or write, but man, this film and the screenplay, assumingly, is presented to us in a really insulting way because it's coming across as obnoxious and it's coming across as way smarter than it actually is. Because this film is pretty much the two big themes I've garnished from my experience watching The Bride was women under a patriarchal society and femininity and feminism. Those were the big themes protruding this film. And those themes exude from a lot of the characters and the relationships that they are in this film. And I think the message being said here isn't the wrong one, but the way the message is presented in a way that they think they're doing something groundbreaking and something that's never been done before in a really unique way. And the whole time I'm watching this film and I'm consuming the thematics of it all, I'm thinking to myself, I can't name the films I've seen that are similar, but I've seen better films that cover the same themes and substantive matter of this film, and they've done it in a much better way, a much more interesting way, and a much more emotionally attaching way. This film is covering a lot of emotional and realistic aspects of real life, especially for women, not even in today's era, but even in the 1930s and so on and so forth. There's a lot of emotion through the themes of this film, but yet you don't feel this film emotionally attaching to you through its substance matter. And that's on the screenplay and that's on the filmmaking and the storytelling, in my opinion. Not even Jessie Buckley, who doesn't give a good performance here, even in the great emotional moments that she showcases in this film, she can't even emotionally attach to you because the substance matter isn't all that. And listen, I think what is being said here is right, but it's also something I've seen before done in a much better way. We see examples of how the patriarchal society controls women and suppresses women, and how women are usually on the right side of history in a lot of different relationships in this film. We also see how men can be manipulative to women in this film, and how that is a constant presence in this film. Whether it was Frankenstein and the Bride, or Frankenstein and Ida, Frank and Ida, you get it. Whether it was Jessie Buckley and Christian Bale. Christian Bale, who plays Frankenstein, revives Ida, a woman he doesn't know, because he is lonely. He doesn't think about what she might feel, and he just wants to feel companionship. And not only does he bring her to life, but he also is lying and manipulating her and saying that they were once a couple before the accident, before they both died, and that they actually got married. He proposed, they were a couple. And he's been lying and manipulating until he's finally put in a spot to tell the truth. So that's an example of how controlling men can be for their own selfish reasons. We also get that with Peter Sarsgaard's character, Jake Wiles, alongside Penelope Cruz, who is his detective partner slash secretary, and she's doing all the work. She's clearly the better detective. She's emotionless. She's not as attached to the case as Jake Wiles is, but she can't get any credit for it, and she never has gotten any credit for the work she does. She doesn't get any credit for it, and she doesn't get any credit for the work that she does, even though she's the better detective. And he is just stuck in this patriarchal society where he's like, this is just the way it is. You can't get the credit. That's just the way it is. You know I can do nothing about it. That's another example of how men control women in a patriarchal society. We also get that with the big monster of this film. And we get that through the lens of a criminal in a patriarchal society who seemingly keeps on getting away with it and constantly hurting women and killing them and mutilating them by cutting off their tongues. So there's a lot of examples of patriarchal society, femininity, and how men control women in the male dominant society that is being portrayed in this film. And that, honestly, you can draw real life comparisons from real life, especially in the past. Not so much nowadays, even though there still are some examples of that, no doubt. So those are the two big themes of this film. And though the message is right, and though the message is clear to me, I think the way it's presented isn't done very well. And I think Maggie Gyllenhaal fails quite mightily here as a filmmaker, as a storyteller. And honestly, I would consider this an embarrassment if she wasn't so rich. Not only in your second feature-length film as a director, after having a wildly successful acting career, you get two of the best performers in Hollywood to be in your film. So clearly these two were fascinated by the script, or they must have been paid a really good amount of money. It could have been both. But this feels like a severe letdown, and it feels like a severe waste of resources and talent. You had people like Jesse Buckley, Christian Bale, Jake Gyllenhaal, Annette Bening, Peter Sarsgaard, Penelope Cruz, Jeannie Berlin, John Magaro. We even get Louis Cansamili, like Julianne Hough. There's so many recognizable faces in this film. William Hill. So many. And it all feels misused. It all feels embarrassing, obnoxious, and annoying. And honestly, this film overstayed its welcome quite a bit. This film reminded me of Joker 2, Folie à Deux. The film starring Lady Gaga as Harley Quinn and Joaquin Phoenix as a Joker. There's a lot of musical aspects to this film that doesn't progress the story, that doesn't add weight and substance to the story. It's just in the film incoherently. And this film is incoherent, but it's presented to you in a way where it thinks it's so much smarter than it actually is. And to me, that's insulting, and to me, that's one of the worst kind of films you can have. But with that being said, there were some parts in this film where I was bored, but also it wasn't like completely boring. I was fascinated about where this film was going to go, but not in a great way. I was fascinated, like, man, how big is this car crash going to be? Who gets injured here? Am I going to look at Jesse Buckley differently? Am I going to look at Christian Bale differently? At the end of the day, I looked at Maggie Gyllenhaal differently, but I really didn't have that big of an opinion of her in the first place. No offense to her. She is obviously clearly talented enough to even get this funding and to get these actors in her own film. So shout out to her, but really this is a gigantic miss that borders and teeters on embarrassing. So, moving on, so on and so forth. Where do I go from here? Usually I do a section where I'm like, man, if I had to give this film compliments, what would the compliments be? I can't really garnish compliments for this film. That's why my rating for this film is probably going to be so low. I really have zero compliments for this film. But if I had to dig deep and give you guys compliments, here's what it is. Even though I think Jessie Buckley doesn't give a good performance here, some of the moments of her performance are some of the best parts of the film, which isn't saying a whole lot, man. Like, I think she doesn't give a good performance, but there are some moments from Jessie Buckley where she is great. But man, the rest of this film lets her down. Christian Bale, not one of his most memorable performances, but he is innocent here. He does a good job as the Frankenstein, aka Frank, a lonely creature who doesn't realize how manipulative he's been and how selfish he's been, until he's finally having to address the truth. Peter Sarsgaard as Jake Wiles is great, really, really great. He's one of the most talented actors that not a lot of people think about. He's really, really good. That's really about it. There's also some really familiar faces that I like Louis Cansamilli. Like, he's one of the best weirdos. Like, he's been playing some really weird roles lately. Like, he was a horrible role, like a horrible human being in Sorry Baby. He was a horrible human being in The Irishman and The Killers of the Flower Moon. And then he's a horrible cop in this film as well, who's a bit rapey and a bit sexual assaulty. And then John Margaro, who was in Past Lives, Materialist. He's a really good actor that not a lot of people think of, but man, he's really good here as well. The cast is great and stacked. Even though I don't think Jessie Buckley gives a good performance here, she is good, man. Like, she's really fucking good in some spots, but overall not a good performance, especially for her standards. So yeah, man. I mean, listen, I'm trying to scrape up some compliments, but the compliments for me really lie with the fucking performances. And I guess I will say this: the production design and the sets look incredible, and I do think that at times this film does look really good, and I think the cinematography at times does look good. But that's really about it. So the performances, parts of Jessie Buckley's performance, even though she does a good performance in this film, in my opinion. Christian Bale's good. Annette Bening is really good as Dr. Cornelia. Peter Sarsgaard is good. Penelope Cruz, not good. I didn't mean to put her in the compliments category. And the rest of the cast is good. So the performances, for the most part, are good. The cinematography at spots is good. And then the production design and the sets are really great. That's it for me on compliments. Now, let's talk about what I didn't like here. Everything, story, tries to come off much more thought-provoking than it is. It tries to come off as much more unique and different than it is. Filmmaking and the storytelling is just incredibly underwhelming. The cameo from Jake Gyllenhaal is distracting. Why? Why even cast him just to prove that he's your brother, Maggie Gyllenhaal? I thought Penelope Cruz as Myrna Malloy is just bad and not a good performance. She looked so confused a lot of the time during this film. Everything was bad about this movie for me. And a lot of it really anchors on the screenplay for me. I think the screenplay is the worst part of this film. And then I go with the characterization of the characters. Like, Jessie Buckley's character is so confusing to me. So I guess I move on to the two main performances because I still have quite a bit to say about Jessie Buckley and a little bit to say about Christian Bale. But Jessie Buckley plays Ida, the bride, and Mary Shelley. And I consider myself to have pretty good media literacy. I'm not a dummy. I've been watching movies for a while, but her character confused me. Mary Shelley, in case you didn't know, wrote the Frankenstein novel. And she's, if not the first person we see in this film, in black and white. And she's almost narrating the film and narrating the character of Ida. But it seems like her and Ida are intertwined. Because at some moments when Ida delivers line of dialogue, she rattle offs on like a Tourette-esque rant, or where she starts saying different verbiage and eloquent language. And it's really weird. And I don't understand the aspect of that story. Is this story from Mary Shelley? If she were able to write about the Bride of Frankenstein, I'm not too familiar if she even did. Or is Mary Shelley somehow attached to Ida in some way? I could not tell you what that was. And I pride myself on my media literacy. I'm pretty sure I nailed the themes of this film. I couldn't nail what the character of Ida was and what Mary Shelley was with Ida. Because Jessie Buckley played Mary Shelley. I don't know, man. It was very confusing and very weird. And Jessie Buckley had so many incoherent, babbling moments in this film where it started to annoy me. And this felt egregious. There was a moment in this film where I'm like, this is egregious from Jessie Buckley and the characterization of her characters. Egregious. I was like, what's going on here? Do we need all this babbling and random rants and random tossing around of pretentious words? Because obviously she was saying words from the perspective of an author because Mary Shelley was somehow attached to Ida. I couldn't tell you. Christian Bale's Frankenstein. I mean, This guy can't do any wrong really, and Jessie Buckley should be in the same category. But man, the how they wrote her character really kind of fucked her over here. Christian Bale is good as a Frankenstein. He's weird. He's all into his character. He has the funniest parts of this film. And by the way, that's really all I have to say about Christian Bale. Funny. He does what he does, and he is not a blemish on this film at all. But this film tries to be funny in some spots, and it's just not. It didn't really garnish a laugh from me. But if I had to say what was some funny parts, it was some stuff from Frankenstein. This film is weird, man. There's a sex scene, or not really a sex. There's actually two sex scenes in this film. Like, there's a scene in this film where Frankenstein gets head from the Bride of Frankenstein, and Frank pushes her head away. He's like, "Not now, not now, no, no," and it's just weird. Like Jessie Buckley's character is like very brash in this film, and I just didn't understand the importance of that. Like the violence in this film is crazy. The bride bites off a cop's tongue, which was one of the best scenes of this film, where this cop is taking advantage of the bride, and she bites off his tongue, similar to what the mobster in Chicago was doing to women and how he killed her before she got resuscitated to life. Except he didn't take her tongue because he didn't kill her by his own hand. And this film had a lot of violence, and there's honestly a lot of, prepare for the word I'm about to say, rape scenes in this film as well, or almost rape scenes. Like the violence in this film comes from scenes where men are trying to like sexually assault or rape the bride, and Frankenstein or the bride save the day. You know what I mean? And I understand what they're trying to say with that. Obviously, with a lot of this film covering how ridiculous the patriarchal society can be, especially in the 1930s. But this film was violent and harsh in a lot of different ways, and I didn't expect that. I didn't expect this film to be so blunt in its honesty about the patriarchal society. So, overall, I think The Bride is a mess. I think it's incoherent. And quite honestly, I feel like I maybe have been incoherent with my review of this film, but that's not my fault. That's this film's fault because my brain feels like a puddle. I feel like I just walked through tons of shit watching this movie. This film made me think of better films that covered the substance matter in a way more unique and interesting way. Like a lot of the times I was thinking about Sorry Baby, and Sorry Baby isn't exactly covering patriarchal society, but it's covering femininity and how it is tough in a world of abuse and manipulation to navigate yourself as a woman. And I wish I was watching Sorry Baby over this. And honestly, this film is so similar to Joker Folie Do, where it shocks me. Joker Folie Do is one of the worst films I've seen in the past 5 years, and this film might fall into the same category. It really might. Joker Folie Do is one of the biggest disasters of the past 5 years, and this film might be alongside this. This is probably going to be a major flop because I swear, you guys, I am not a believer in walking out of theaters. I am not. I am one that believes if I buy a ticket, I buy popcorn, I buy soda, I am sitting through the whole film. I don't care how bad it gets. And trust me, I have been tempted to walk out before. I haven't felt this feeling in a while, but there was about 5 to 10 people that walked out of this theater. By the way, there was like 30 people watching this film alongside me in a pretty big theater. And 5 to 10 people left. And I felt envy and I felt admiration to those people because they actually had balls to walk out. I wish I was able to do that, but instead, I love film too much to the point where I'm like, I'm not going to walk out no matter how bad it gets. So that's how I feel about this film. Overall, I give The Bride a 1.5 out of 5. I give The Bride a 2.5 out of 10 or a 3 out of 10. I really thought this film was egregious. This was a monstrous and fascinating mess, but overall it's a terrible film and not a good look for Maggie Gyllenhaal. And honestly, this puts a halt in the momentum of Jessie Buckley. She remains unscathed. She's innocent for the most part here, but man, not a good performance, especially in her follow-up to her performance in Hamnet. So, 1.5 out of 5, a 25/30 out of 100. This was not a good film, and honestly, I thought this was quite embarrassing. So, The next time you see me, this upcoming week, leading into the weekend, is Oscar weekend. And man, we are in that month. So expect this upcoming week, because the next Sunday we have Oscars. So expect my Oscar predictions and what I would vote for at the Oscars, and expect a top 10 films of 2025, because I haven't done that yet on the channel. I did top 10 worst, but expect a top 10 best films of 2025, because I'm seeing Sentimental Value and The Secret Agent this upcoming week, and then I'll finally be able to do that list, and then I'll finally be able to do my Oscar predictions and what I would vote for, because that's going to be a fun, long video. And then also expect a review of the newest horror film coming out this upcoming week as well, Undertone, which is being touted as a really interesting horror film, so I can't wait for that. And by the way, one of the best things about this theater experience today when I saw The Bride was the trailer for Lee Cronin's The Mummy. How awesome does that film look? I'm excited for that. So listen, bad film, horrible film with The Bride, but listen, it's the movie, folks. It's art. We're going to get bad films. We're going to get mediocre films. We're going to get nothing burgers. But this was at least memorably bad and a quite fascinating mess. So, it is your boy Matt Talks Films. If you made this far in the video, leave a like, comment, share, subscribe right here, right now, Matt Talks Films. And follow me everywhere on Matt Talks Films, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter for more short form content like this. And also follow me everywhere on Matt Talks Sports, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. And subscribe to my channel on Matt Talks Sports for some sports content. Now, I'll see you guys this upcoming week with about 2 videos at least. So, Oscars, it's Oscar season, baby. Timmy C, you should win the Oscars. That will be talked about in my coming video. So, it's your boy Matt Talks Films, and I'll see you next time.